Hello, I am Nurse Catherine Pine. I was born in 1864 and died in 1941 when I was 77 years old. You will see that I am wearing my suffragette medal, specifically a medal for duty. Many years ago, the Women's Social and Political Union, also known as the WSPU, awarded me a special medal for the care I gave the suffragettes and their leader, Emmeline Pankhurst. Emmeline and others were weakened after hunger striking, and many had been forcibly fed. This medal, which reads, "For Duty," was a precious treasure to me, and I wore it on special occasions, such as the unveiling of Emmeline's statue in 1930. I was 66 years old then, and I remember that occasion well. Emmeline's death in 1928, and the subsequent unveiling of her statue, caused me to think deeply about my own mortality. And as I gazed at Emmeline's likeness in stone, I began to think about my legacy. It was around that time that I made an important decision. After some reflection and deliberation, I decided to leave my suffragette memorabilia to do memory work. I bequeathed my suffragette medal to the British College of Nurses, a professional organisation that helped me in my career. You see, the British College of Nurses, or BCN as I will call it, had something called the History Section, and this History Section was really a collection of various relics and artefacts, many of which were associated with Florence Nightingale, who was born in 1820 and died in 1910. To be sure, Florence Nightingale pioneered the profession of nursing, and her memorabilia helped to educate others about how Miss Nightingale created this new profession for women. But when I entered nursing school in the late 1890s, there was talk of giving women the vote. In 1866, John Stuart Mill actually petitioned for equal voting rights for women, but his 1867 Reform Bill amendment was unsuccessful. In the years that followed, there were more arguments, petitions, and other efforts to use words and persuasive argument in the movement for votes for women. But after a few decades, we realized that words, petitions, and persuasive arguments were not working. Deeds were needed, deeds of daring, deeds of sacrifice. And so in 1903, Emmeline Pankhurst founded the Women's Social and Political Union, or WSPU, in Manchester. And this group engaged in deed after deed of daring and sacrifice, hunger striking, thirst striking, sleep striking. My nursing skills would be used to help Mrs. Pankhurst and other members of the WSPU regain their strength after these majestic deeds of sacrifice. Never seeking to inflict physical harm in their pursuit of justice, the suffragettes instead declared war on property. And for this, as well as other actions, such as rushing the House of Commons and Buckingham Palace, they were arrested. Indeed, I was the nurse to Emmeline Pankhurst herself during all of this, and I nursed her many times during the reign of the so-called Cat and Mouse Act. This act set in motion a vicious cycle for Mrs. Pankhurst and others, which proceeded as follows. First was the arrest, followed by the imprisonment, then hunger and thirst strikes followed, and after that, a temporary release from prison only to be followed by another arrest, followed by more hunger and thirst strikes, followed by another temporary release from prison, so on and so forth, over and over again. Yes, it really did happen that way, and my medal helps tell this undertold story, which for all intents and purposes has been erased from the public conscience. You see, my medal is very much a book, and each of the 11 bars is a chapter in this saga for votes for women in England, which, as I understand it, has something to do with women getting the vote in the US, as American Alice Paul trained with the WSPU before she founded the National Woman's Party in 1913. Now, I think this history is important, and not wanting it to be lost, I did what I could do. As I told you, upon my death, I left my suffragette medal to the History Section of the British College of Nurses, the BCN, so that my medal could be used to tell the story to future generations. So what happened? Indeed, after my death in 1941, and pursuant to the terms of my will, my friends delivered the medal to the History Section of the BCN. For a while, the medal remained among the other relics within the History Section. However, the BCN was dissolved in 1956, causing my medal to go missing, and my testamentary plan to be forgotten for many, many years. But some years later, in the 1990s, a British historian named Elizabeth Crawford tracked down my will and learned about my medal. Elizabeth even wrote about it in her 1999 book, The Women's Suffrage Movement, a reference guide, 1866 to 1928. Some decades later, she inquired about the medal's whereabouts, and it was in 2016 that Elizabeth realized that my precious suffragette medal had gone missing. It's a long story. She even wrote about it in her piece titled The Mystery of Nurse Pine's Medal. Want to learn more? Sure you do. You can begin with Elizabeth's 2016 entry on her excellent blog, Woman and Her Sphere, and continue to the podcasts with Elizabeth that are linked below. But the good news is, thanks to Elizabeth's efforts, my medal has been found. And now my intent is finally being honoured, and this is precisely why I am talking to you now. I am Nurse Catherine Pine, nurse to the suffragettes who endured hunger striking and forcible feeding. Until we meet again, my dear friend and fellow seeker.